Hey guys, welcome back to my channel today. In today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you guys my thoughts on a new Pat McGrath release. So this is actually something I wasn't sure I was actually going to purchase myself. She did come out with a line of single shadows. There are a few that are copies or duplicates from her palettes, and there's actually a few new shades as well. So when I looked at the shades and the range, it is a beautiful range, but as you guys know, I've shared this in previous videos before, but her matte formula has never been one to be super easy for me to work with. Maybe it's because I'm not a professional or I'm not used to it. I have no idea, but either way, her mattes give me a little bit of a hard time when it comes to blending. So I decided to skip out on the mattes. So today I'm not going to be talking about the mattes from that line. All of my thoughts today are going to be on the other two finishes. So she released some shimmer shades as well as some metallics. The ones that I picked up today, the first one is Celestial. This is a shimmer shade actually. The second one I picked up is Rose Venus, and the third is Enraptured. So I will talk about these and how they've applied to my eyes. I'll let you know if I think the formula is consistent with other palettes, because there is one of these shades that I picked up that is a duplicate to one of my palette shades. So we'll talk about all of that. I'll show you the swatches and also how I got this natural look today using these three pans. So let's get started with all of my thoughts. First of all, let's talk about the outer packaging. Of course, whenever I do a review, I always talk about this first. Now, these are actually placed in those similar bags that Pat McGrath always has. These ones have sequins in them as well. So when I reviewed the palette that she did recently, the Ecstasy palette, that is one that also came in a pouch like that, and it had sequins all over the place. And to be honest, the sequins actually drove me crazy. They weren't situated in a separate part of the package, so there was sequins on the product itself everywhere. A little bit annoying, but something definitely to overlook. It's not that big of a deal. Once you get the single pan out of the bag, you will see then the shadow itself and the packaging. This is a very simplistic packaging. It is definitely a plastic with a black rim. We do have 1.1 grams of product in each of these, and they are pretty expensive for what they are. So for 1 gram of product, or 1.1 grams, it is 25 American dollars or 34 Canadian dollars. So you do have to be a little choosy, I would say, at least most of us do, in order to decide which shades that you want. So when I was picking up these shades, as I said in my intro, I just wanted to avoid the mattes because I do have two of her other palettes in my collection. First is the Bronze Temptation palette, and the second one is the Bronze Ambition, both in this type of format here with like the packaging built right in. And there are some mattes in here that I've had some issues with that are already in my collection, so I'm gonna keep them around just so I can try to get used to the formula there, but I didn't want to spend any more money on her mattes just because of my personal experience. But if you have no issues with her mattes, you can definitely check out the line of singles and see if any of them interest you. So these are available currently at Pat McGrath's website. I think she released those as an early release on her site, and I was actually very pleasantly surprised because she actually shipped them out really quickly, especially for Canadians. I have purchased from her site before, and when she released the lip glosses actually, I purchased a few of them through her site, and it probably took about a couple weeks for even it to ship out, so that was kind of disappointing. But this turnaround time was a lot better for her site, so just keep that in mind. I did pay the fastest shipping though, and I had to pay a little bit of duties up front as a Canadian ordering from her website. But they will be also available at Sephora as of April 5th, but it doesn't say, it's not super clear as to if it's going to be in store or not, because as I'm looking at the app here, it says it'll be in store and online, but if you actually look at the writing underneath the price point, it also says online only. So I don't know what is actually happening with that, but for sure it's going to be on the app and online at the minimum on April 5th. These are also limited edition and exclusive to Sephora and Pat McGrath's site. So as I mentioned, there are some shades that are repeats and there are some that are new. So in all honesty, I thought I was going to try some all new shades because I didn't want to get a duplicate initially. But then when I picked up Celestial, I was like, wait a second, do I have that shade? The answer is yes. So I was like, crap, this is one that is a repeat, but it is perfect for this video because then I can tell you guys if I truly think this is the same formula or not. So Celestial is in this Bronze Temptation palette, and when I swatch them side by side, the shade is identical, obviously, so it is the same shade. But what I can tell, and this is just from touch maybe, and it's probably just like a tiny, tiny little factor between the two, it does seem like in this Bronze Temptation palette, the Celestial shade seems to be a little looser, like not as hard pressed as the single pan right here. So I don't know if that's the case, but when you swatch it, you can absolutely tell because you have a lot of pigment. I'm just gonna see if I can show you guys. So Celestial is in the top right corner there, and you can see how fluffy it is in the pan. I'm gonna try to swatch it without, oh, it's gonna be tough. So as you can see, I've pulled up quite a bit on my finger already, and it is quite pigmented. Then I go in with this single pot here, and it just seems to be a little bit harder pressed, although the shade is identical. So you can see them both on my hand here. They are identical. Looks like the exact same shade swatched twice, but in my opinion, it just seems to be a little bit harder pressed in the single pan, and it might be because there isn't a lot backing this little palette here versus we have this entire contraption, basically, for this palette. So I don't know if that has anything to do with it or if it's just in my head, but it does seem like the one in the Temptation palette is a little bit fluffier, looser, and not as hard pressed. Out of the three I picked up today, Rose Venus is a brand new shade. This one is super beautiful, you guys. I'm going to show you guys the swatches as well, but I'm also going to show you kind of singly. This is a metallic. It is so pretty. Is this something that is going to be totally unique to you? The answer is no. I mean, we do have shades like this in our collection multiple times through. This is just going to depend on if you are a Pat fan and you want to support her brand, or you want to own, you know, one of her single shades and you're looking at a shade that you can see yourself using a lot of. That might be one of them. So for the look I created today, it was very easy, very straightforward. I just wanted to have a softer look because just yesterday I reviewed the Tarte Icy Betch palette and it was a very dramatic blue look. So I wanted to keep it a little bit more low key. And while I was testing these, I mean, these shades are very everyday. So it was very easy to do that. First, I picked up my Sigma E25 and I used the shade Celestial. So this is a brush that I completely forgot is a little bit too soft for a shimmer shade from Pat's formula. In my opinion, if you want to apply it with your brush, you will need to spray it or you'll need to use a denser brush. So right away, I just applied more with my fingertip, and then I also went in with a denser brush, which is my Sigma E55. That way I could get more of that pigment translated onto the lid because her shimmer formula is actually quite light and fluffy, so you will see it fall on the lid as well if you do not use those precautions of denser brushes as well as potentially spraying your brush if you want to really minimize the fallout. Next, I wanted to try the gold shade Enraptured, and I picked it up with an E25 from Sigma. This is the same brush I used with the shimmer shade, realizing that it was too fluffy for the shimmer formula. It does pick up the metallic a lot better, obviously. It's not as fluffy, and I really liked adding that to the middle of the lid and kind of pushing it outward towards the outside. Very pigmented as well. It does have a little bit of fallout, but definitely not as much as the shimmer shade. Lastly, I went in with my Wayne Goss number 19. This is a natural haired brush. I wanted to see how the metallic would pick up with a natural haired brush versus the Sigma that is synthetic. And I picked up the Rose Venus shade, which is also a metallic, and this is the new shade as well, or one of the new shades, sorry, to her line for the singles. And this is a gorgeous shade as well. Worked out perfectly with the natural haired brush. If anything, the natural haired picked up a little bit more pigment, I would say, on the brush than the synthetic. And I found that it just gave that little smokiness that I wanted, which was a little bit of like a pinky copper kind of idea for today's look. Okay, so I'm gonna pull on my phone now. I'm gonna tell you guys the re-promoted shades, or the ones that are in other palettes and where they are in. So first of all, we have Pale Fire. That is from the La Vie en Rose palette. We also have Purple Rain from that palette. Then we have Dark Matter, which is that dark matte. That's in the Ecstasy kit as well as in Dark Star. We also have Enraptured, which is this shade that I picked up. It is in Dark Star as well, but I don't have Dark Star, so that was not a problem for me. Celestial, of course, is in the Bronze Temptation, as I already mentioned. Gold Standard is a shade that is in Decadence as well as Metamorphosis. The Divine Mink shade is in Decadence as well. Lapis Luxury, also in Decadence. Then we have Sextrovert, which is in the Platinum Bronze. Telepathic Taupe, which is also in the Platinum Bronze. And Deep Velvet, which is in the Platinum Bronze as well. The new shades, as I mentioned, Rose Venus. We also have Crimson Fire, Synthetica, Corrupt Copper, Statuesque, and Burnished Honey. If you are thinking, oh, well, maybe it's the same shade but reformulated, I don't believe it is. I can't find anywhere in any of Pat McGrath's like Instagram, site, anything. I can't tell if it is the exact same formula and just pressed differently, or if it really is a new formula. But to me and to my touch and eye and how it applies, I would say it's safe to say that it's pretty well the same formula. Anyways, guys, that is it for my thoughts on these 3 new Pat McGrath singles. Here we are. Let me know down below, do you have your eye on any of them? As I said, I didn't think I was going to pick any up, but I'm glad I picked up for sure the metallics. I do kind of regret picking up Celestial because there's enough of that shade in this pan that I feel like I don't necessarily need it. I shouldn't have done that, but I am glad I was able to use that shade to compare it to the palette and let you guys know if I think it is the same or not. If you guys enjoyed this video, don't forget to let me know by giving it a big thumbs up, and until my next one, guys, take care. Thanks so much for watching. Bye, guys.
You and me, everything that we've been through has made us strong. You won't believe we've had our gray, but somewhere there's a light inside of us. It shows the way.